I have three sons and one angel baby, and our second and third son, we had a miscarriage, and it was a later term loss. Everything was going great, and, just kind of assumed that we would have a healthy baby at the end. And unfortunately, that was not the case. Around, 15 weeks, I started to have a miscarriage, which ultimately ended up with me delivering that baby at our local hospital. So it was really unexpected and very tragic. After leaving the hospital and coming home, I realized how necessary it was for women to be supported in that struggle and through that journey. And I think there was something about, physically leaving the hospital and you leave with nothing. So it was literally the next day that I decided that I wanted to support women and families going through something so difficult and hard. And so I came up with the idea of a joy bomb.
On today's episode, I have Emily Landers here, and Emily has just this incredible nonprofit that she's going to share about tonight. And she's going to share a little bit about her story and really what's led her to the work she's doing for moms, women, and families. And I cannot wait for you to hear her incredible heart tonight. So Emily, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Erin, for having me and allowing me to share my story and about my nonprofit.
Absolutely. I would love to kind of start with your journey, right? We don't have to go deep dive all the way back to all the things, but I know you have a really profound story of what's really led you to the work you're doing now and the nonprofit you've created that's focused most on serving women and families. And so can you share a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I have three sons and one angel baby. And, between our second and third son, we had a miscarriage, and it was a later term loss. I was about 15 weeks pregnant. Everything was going great, and, just kind of assumed that we would have a healthy baby at the end. And unfortunately, that was not the case. Around, 15 weeks, I started to have a miscarriage, which ultimately ended up with me delivering that baby at our local hospital. So it was really unexpected and very tragic. After leaving the hospital and coming home, I realized how necessary it was for women to be supported in that struggle and through that journey. And I think there was something about, physically leaving the hospital and you leave with nothing. So it was literally the next day that I decided that I wanted to support women and families going through something so difficult and hard. And so I came up with the idea of a joy bomb, which is a beautiful care package that can be given to moms and families after they experience a loss in the hospital. I did go on to have a third son after that loss, but it was just so sad. And I wanted to kind of open up this conversation surrounding loss while also honoring our baby that we lost.
Yeah. And the work you're doing, Emily, and the way you're sharing through your own journey, right? And you're really turning something that felt really hard into something that's so joyful is just commendable, right? And I really want to take a moment to say that the work that you are doing for women and families is so profound and so powerful and so important. And that's one of the reasons I felt so drawn to connect more with you and to learn more about your journey and the work that you're doing, because I want more women and families to really hear what it feels like to go through something like this, like a miscarriage, and to have a loss to this capacity. And then how you actually can turn something like this into something that really pours into other people, and how wonderful that can be, right? Even when we go through really hard things. And so I know one of the things you've shared with me is how we can't really change what happens to us, but we can really determine how we respond or what we do or how we move forward. And so I know you've gone through this tremendous loss, and you've had seasons where you've grown your family, et cetera, and you've experienced a lot in your motherhood journey. Talk a little bit about, for you, in the beginning and even now, how you've really worked through flipping the script on the mindset side. And you've taken things like this kind of hardship and even other hardships that you've likely experienced in motherhood and have turned them into more positive things or more productive things, or have helped yourself kind of work through the mental and emotional weight of things that feel hard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I always thought about miscarriage, and it was something that I kind of dreaded. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do if that ever happened to me. And, even in that pregnancy, I remember asking the doctor and things like, well, surely there would be symptoms of a miscarriage. I would know right away. I don't know if I just felt sort of uneasy, but all that to be said, you just don't know how you will handle something until you go through it. And after that loss, it was so important to me that other people knew this baby. I really truly felt like the idea for the Joy Bombs was coming straight from this higher source, this higher good, and that I was sort of just this messenger to bring joy, and that the whole purpose of their life was to bring joy to others. So if I could do something to make someone else's life easier during something so difficult, that would be so great for me. It would help me heal. And it really goes back to me, wanting to honor that baby while also supporting other women. And I also realized after going through that darkness and that experience that art was so important to me. So art was kind of this tool. I make and handcraft all the items that go into the Joy Bombs. So I could pour myself into something that was very healing to me while also being mutually beneficial, supportive of other women and families, talking about loss and encouraging other women to do the same, and kind of building this community around loss, miscarriage and stillbirth and infertility too.
And I love that you're talking through kind of the multifaceted things that you've really done to try and help yourself, but also encourage other women that maybe are experiencing something like this. And one of the things that I want to recall that is so important for us to remember as moms is really like figuring out what fills your cup, right? Like what lights you up, what makes you feel most like you. Is that a creative outlet? Is that pouring back into people in some way? Is that crafting something you're passionate about, or pouring into something that really gives you this sense of purpose, et cetera? Like that is so important for us as women. And I love that you've taken this nonprofit initiative and you've also really paired it with what fills you up as a woman. And how do you really make sure that you're doing that with intention? Because that's a huge part of the overall puzzle, with really making sure that you're, taking care of your health alongside pouring into other moms and women. So I love that, Emily. And I love that you talk about a creative outlet, because I'm the same way. Like I love creative outlets, and they're a huge piece to my overall well-being, like having that as a way to kind of express myself and share my passion,
Yeah, absolutely. I was previously a teacher. For 7 years, I taught kindergarten. I taught English as a second language. And then after I had my first son, Jack, decided to stay home, and then stayed home since then. But I always tell people, I'm like, it's really interesting that this third child that ultimately, we went on to lose, gave me such a purpose in this life. I was able to kind of carve out more me time and do things that could allow me to pour into myself while also giving back. And it was just this really beautiful kind of full circle moment. And I was thinking about how, your children teach you so much about yourself. And this child that we lost really did teach me a ton about my life and what is important, and gave me kind of an excuse to carve out more of that time to create, to connect with others, and what a beautiful purpose of their life,
Yes, absolutely. And I know one of the things you've shared with me is this concept of micro joys helping us survive these macro grief moments, right? And how little simple things like creating joy bombs like you have, or simple acts of kindness, or getting into a vulnerable place and sharing your story, like how much that can really impact other people in such a profound way. And so when you think about that statement, which I know you've shared with me, I'd love for you to share a little bit more here. Like, what does that phrase really mean to you personally? And how do you see it showing up and helping other families and the people that you're working with or pouring into when they receive joy bombs, et cetera?
Yeah, I remember shortly after my loss, I was just kind of looking about like 5 feet in front of me, and I was thinking, well, what little thing can I do today that will bring me joy and that will allow me to kind of feel better about right now? And that is always what I tell people after they go through loss. I'm always like, just find one little thing today, like whether it's like getting yourself a coffee or carrying out dinner or going for a walk with a friend, like just carving out these little tiny bits of joy in your life. And it just makes burdens so much easier. And that was kind of this idea behind the Joy Bombs, is that I could put together a collection of little intentional, beautiful items that just make you feel hopeful and promote self-care.
Yeah.
And I could handcraft them. So the items inside the Joy Bombs, they are all little. We have like a rainbow maker that the moms are given that they can hang in their window. It's like a prism. They have a little tiny glass bottle with gold stars that has a little paper scroll so they can write down a wish. They're given these beautiful bracelets that they can look at and remember and honor their baby. There are little tiny things that ultimately bring great joy, because I firmly believe that it is always in life, it is the little things that take up the greatest space in your heart. So if I can kind of help bring those to other people when it's so necessary, when life is really difficult, it just means so much. And I try to teach that to my 3 sons too. I'm like, there are so many wonderful things around, like little tiny wonders, that if we just stop and take a second to enjoy them and see them, like a beautiful moon or a sunset, I can't tell you the number of times I'm like, you guys get over here. You got to look at this moon. You've got to look at this stuff. It's like, we shouldn't be so busy and so kind of hardened by the darkness and the things that happen to us to forget to find the wonder and the beauty in the world that does still exist. It just can come about, in different ways. And we just have to be patient enough to find them and not hardened.
Everything that the Joy Bombs are focused on, and the importance of just continuing to find joy in the little things, because that is such a powerful reminder that we have to be reminded of over and over and over. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, we live really busy lives. And if we don't pause and take time to really soak in all of these little things, we're missing it. Like, we're missing the point. We're missing the beauty. We're missing the value of so much of the blessing of life, right? And so I love that you're really talking so much about how we have to slow down and really focus on the little things and instill joy in our day in the most profound way possible, is by really focusing on the smallest stuff possible. And so I know that, you talked a little bit about the bracelets that are a part of the Joy Bombs and something that have become a big part of the initiative that you've created. And I know you've talked with me about how they become kind of a symbol of community and connection. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how that's been a big piece to your motherhood journey, but how you've maybe seen this also be a really powerful thing for women who are going through a loss like this, or for women who are really experiencing some level of hardship to this degree. How important is community and connection?
Yeah, it is absolutely essential to the point that, my friend Opal and I actually have started a support group for moms. We do get together monthly at her shop in a local town here in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. We get together, fellow lost moms actually help make the bracelets that are then donated to the Joy Bombs, the care packages. And it's just an opportunity for these women who've been through loss to get to share their story while also kind of giving back in honor of their baby and supporting this mission that I have. Every time you buy one of my bracelets that I create, one is automatically donated to a mom. And I always thought it would just be so beautiful to get people who've been through something similar together to help create these bracelets that then are given to moms experiencing the same thing. It's just so full circle and it's so beautiful. And, I am lucky because I have a little something, a lot of love, this nonprofit that I've created, that I'm able to kind of have this platform to speak about loss and to talk about my baby, because people who've been through loss do want to share about their child that they lost. I often fear that other people, they don't have that platform. They don't have a little something, a lot of love. So to give them space and a place to talk about their baby and their feelings where everything is validated and you're sitting with others who completely understand what you're going through, it's just so beautiful. And it's about so much more than just the bracelets. You know, it's about connection. It's about joy. It's about hope. It's about understanding and compassion and empathy, and realizing that you aren't alone on this journey. And like when a mom receives one of those care packages in the hospital, it is a tangible representation of this community that's inside. And it's just really profound.
That's so special, Emily. I would love to hear, in your own healing journey and kind of the healing process that you have gone through, how has community and connection really changed how that overall process has felt? We'll get back to our conversation shortly after this message. If you are an overwhelmed and completely confused mom who just wants a simplified, easy to follow, and understandable plan when it comes to their health and wellness journey, then you're in the right place. As a wellness coach, I focus most on empowering women to follow a highly personalized and bio-individual plan that actually gets you results and that feels sustainable for your longevity. I'd love to invite you to set up a free coaching call to talk about your health and wellness journey. Head to erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call today. Again, that URL is erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call. And to make it even easier, head to the show notes of this podcast and click free coaching session to set up your call ASAP. Now let's dive back into the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, community has become the backbone of all of that is a little something, a lot of love. I remember having this idea and talking to my husband and saying, I'm just so excited. I want to make these bags and I don't know what I'm going to call them yet, but I'm just so excited. And he was like, yes, like you have to do that. And this was literally like the day after I got home from the hospital. And then within a week, I had this website. And then all of a sudden, people in the community started hearing about what I was doing, and they were offering to contribute items for the bags. So immediately they were like, well, I'm a maker and I make these soaps, or I own a flower shop. I would love to put a voucher in for you for every mom to come here to make a bouquet for themselves. Or I am a jewelry maker and I can make these necklaces. So having people support this endeavor was so validating because I wasn't sure, how it would grow and how each donation would look necessarily, but I had the support of the community. And then I had this support of, I realized how huge the pregnancy loss community really was. All of a sudden I was hearing from all these people and they were telling me about their story and their baby that they had lost. And I realized, wow, this is a huge community. And even online and on Instagram, you start to find these groups. So that community became enormous and evolving. And, there's the infertility community, there's the pregnancy loss community, and it all kind of comes together in this space.
Yes, it does. And the thing that I just appreciate most that you're creating is a space for women to feel heard, and for them to really talk about their own journey and experience, but to also have a dedicated place where they feel really supported in the journey of sharing more about their child, right? Sharing more about, everything that's happened from the loss all the way through to the things that they're grieving. And I just really appreciate, again, that you have this incredible community that's supporting women in this really special way, because it's so important. And like you said, the community is really big. And it's not something that we necessarily always have a good understanding of until we start to have conversations like this. And we start to understand like the places and the spaces that are available to women that have experienced this level of grief and loss, and how important it is to have support when you're going through something like this. And so again, Emily, I'm just grateful for the work that you're doing and the ways that you're creating this incredible space for women, because it is such a tremendous need. And as a mom of four, I am so grateful that women like you exist that are creating these incredible spaces, because we need support in every aspect of our life, whatever our experience or journey may be. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey related to small acts of kindness. That's the kind of what Joy Bombs is all about. That's what your nonprofit is about. You're pouring into other women who have experienced some level of a loss and giving them some level of joy. But I'd love for you to share maybe a specific like situation or circumstance or something that you remember where somebody showed you a small act of kindness and it really made a big difference in your life.
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So I had a friend who was very open about miscarriage and about loss. And our kids were in 3K together. So one day we went and got coffee and she kind of opened up about her loss. And looking back, I'm like, okay, that was totally meant to be. I was meant to have this connection and this friend. Because as soon as I thought that I was miscarrying, I immediately called her because I knew she had been through it. And ended up going to the doctor and they confirmed our loss. And unfortunately, there was a large waiting period for me because I started to have our miscarriage right on Christmas Eve. So this was like the worst timing ever. And so I had to wait around until the office was back open after Christmas. And before I could even get home, she had gone and put together a care package for me. So I get home and I had called her and, told her the bad news. And I get home and there's this beautiful collection of items that just meant so much to me. And it was during, my hardest, during such darkness and such difficulty. And she showed me this beautiful kindness and it meant so much to me. And it was absolutely something that was a catalyst for all of this. It was like, I was given this beautiful item. I want to do this for the moms. It was just so crazy looking back on how much that meant to me, but also, that she was this person to me. She was a person that I could talk to about miscarriage. And now here I am opening up about loss and being that person to other people and kind of spreading that kindness. It's all about those ripples of kindness that we might never know. We might never know what exactly spreads from something we do, but there is always goodness. And, I think about that. I'm like, well, I lifted somebody during their difficulty and hopefully that will ripple on. And I see that as kind of like karma, kindness spreads, goodness spreads. And I feel like that is so important to all of this.
Yes, the ripple effect. You're speaking to the ripple effect. And, that is one of the greatest gifts we can really give to other people is, the gift of sharing our stories, the gift of paying it forward, the gift of being vulnerable so we can pour into someone else, instill joy somehow, etc. And so I love that you're speaking to how much of a ripple effect that circumstance in your life trickled into this incredible nonprofit business idea that you've now created. I love that so much.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd love for you to share when you think about the ripple effect and you think about the families that you've encountered, the moms you've encountered, and, the women that have gone through miscarriage and loss, what has been maybe something that's been surprising to you when you think about how this has rippled and how it has grown? What's been, maybe a shock or maybe a surprise to you?
Gosh, that's hard. Yeah. I have been overwhelmed by how excited the staff is at the hospitals to receive these joy bombs. I remember at first I was like, I had this idea and I was terrified because I was like, oh, I have this idea, but how am I actually going to get these into the hospital? Like, what do I even do? So I was literally cold calling the hospitals, asking to be connected to the labor and delivery floors and asking them, how many losses they see in a year. And I was so worried that I had this amazing idea, but that I wouldn't be able to execute it. And what I've been surprised about is that the people are so receptive to them to the point that there is such a need for all of these joy bombs. I'm getting calls from different offices, and I'm getting calls from doctors and OB offices wanting these bags. So I've been very surprised about that. Another cool thing that I've been very surprised about is that I've been out in public and I will see people wearing these bracelets, and it literally stops me in my tracks every time it happens. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we were watching the 4th of July parade and we're in Milwaukee, a suburb of Milwaukee. So Harley Davidsons are really big here. And there was a woman riding a motorcycle, and I looked and she had on one of my bracelets, and I was just like, my husband and I looked at each other and he saw it too. And, I just couldn't believe it. Another time we were at a Japanese steakhouse getting dinner at one of those large tables where you're sitting with people you don't know. And I sat down next to a woman and halfway through the meal realized that she had on one of the round bead chakra bracelets. And at the end of the meal, I said to her, I was like, oh my gosh, I really love your bracelet. I didn't even know what else to say. And it was this opportunity for her to speak about her loss. And she said, oh, thanks so much. I was given this in honor of my baby that we lost. So I've just been blown away that I've been able to see some of these donations and to see the women wearing the bracelets proudly. It's just the coolest thing. It really is.
I love that you shared all that, Emily. I mean, I think women need to hear how much their ideas matter, right? And I think sometimes, especially as moms, we can kind of get into our heads around should I do this? Or I feel passionate about this. Should I pursue it? I have all these other things that are also obviously important to me inside motherhood, et cetera. But you're really speaking to this idea of not only your passion and your purpose, but also the incredible ripple effect that you can't even predict, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just happens because that's really where you're being led to go and the impact that you're being led to make. And I love that you're really sharing that because I want women to hear how much your ideas matter, right? And how much whatever you have in your heart, whatever you're passionate about can make a huge impact in the world. And to try not to get too far ahead of yourself and feel scared or timid to put those things out into the universe because there are people that need it. And you have proven that with everything that you're doing. And I love those stories of just seeing the bracelets around your town and really, hearing from labor and delivery and nurses about how excited they are for the initiative that you've created. It's just so cool to hear more about how this has all come to fruition and the impact that you're making. And again, I just love it. I just can't get enough, my friend.
Aww.
One thing that's kind of on my heart as we're talking here is I'm thinking of the mom that's listening to this that maybe has experienced a miscarriage. She's experienced a loss and she's heartbroken, right? She's feeling like she's in the depths of grief. She's just in kind of this dark place. And maybe she doesn't have community. She doesn't have support. She doesn't really know where to turn or what is the best next step or how do I get back into this headspace of realizing that there is joy and there is hope and I can feel those things again. What would you say to that mom that's listening that maybe feels like she's in that place or has experienced that and doesn't really know where to turn or what to do next?
Right. First of all, I would definitely tell them, I would be like, you have every right to be so upset right now and mad and feel all of those feels. I would tell them that nothing they didn't do caused this. Because I know that after my loss, I was trying to find a reason, was there something I did? Was there something I didn't do? You're trying to be logical and find a reason why this happened to you. And sometimes there's just not. And to give yourself grace and to kind of let that control go. I would also go back to that micro joy component, carving out little tiny bits of joy, something that sparks joy, happiness, light again, but also maybe trying to connect with other women who've been going through or who've been through something like this, I think is really essential. And talking about it, everybody is different and everybody copes very differently after a loss like this. So each person will have a unique way of grieving. For me, it was talking about things, talking about my feelings, and in talking, you heal. And talking with other women who completely understand what you're going through is so important. So maybe finding a group in your community, and hopefully that exists. But I feel like there's so much more conversation surrounding loss lately. And even finding little things on Instagram, there's hashtags you can go and you find very encouraging quotes. I remember loving to read quotes after my loss, and those things were very inspiring to me. But maybe finding a hobby you love to, something to do to kind of get you through that darkness. Yeah, all of those things.
Yeah. The thing that sticks out to me the most that I want to make sure I recall is that talking helps you heal. And this is something that I want women to really take away from this conversation, because so often we can get into this headspace of thinking for some reason we're the only one, or that maybe we can't be surrounded or can't find people that understand, or we're not able to essentially get into a place where people can really hear us and help us feel heard, seen, loved, etc. And I know that when you're going through something like a miscarriage or a really hard loss in your life, it can feel really overwhelming to put yourself out there and get vulnerable again almost, and really reach out for help and support. But Emily has really hit the nail on the head here by saying, like, when you get into those places and spaces where you have community, where you feel seen, where you're talking to people that have experienced something like you, talking through it is one of the most important things you can do to actually help yourself heal. And I know, there's so many facets to healing and really getting into this place of taking care of yourself from a mental and emotional standpoint. But in a very simple capacity, like really just talking through it is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself on the healing journey. And so I love that you kind of shared that, Emily, because it's something that I want women to hear, whether it's miscarriage or anything beyond that. Like really getting into community and talking to people that you feel safe and heard and understood by is so important on our inside out health and wellness journey. So I appreciate that, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds us that we aren't alone, and that these seasons aren't permanent. Everything is a season. There's going to be times where you're in the depths of grief, but slowly it does get easier and lighter. And I see that so much at these Moms of Angels nights, that we have women who are literally like going through a current miscarriage. And then you have someone like me who's like 5 years out, and our perspective on miscarriage and loss is so drastically different. And I'm in such a different place now than I was when I started A Little Something, A Lot of Love. And I think just to even be in a room where people are at all of these different stages is really inspiring too. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think, one of the things that I appreciate about being able to share stories like this and have conversations like this is, again, like giving women permission to really lean into their own journey, right? And understand that each of us has a unique experience, a unique journey, a unique thing that we're going through. And at the same time, sharing is a way to continue to kind of create that connection and that community that's so important for helping us continue to press forward in every aspect of our life, our health, and so much more. And so, Emily, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you shared tonight about just all the things, like really making sure that we're focusing on, finding small acts of kindness in our days and sharing that with others, instilling joy in simple, small ways, creating connection and community, and how much that matters in our motherhood journey and so much more. And it's just been really wonderful to hear about the nonprofit that you've created. So before we go, will you quickly share a little bit more about your nonprofit and how people can connect with you and find you online?
Yes, thank you so much. And it's just been such a joy to be here with you, Erin, and you're doing an amazing job with your podcast and talking about difficult things that are so important. People need to talk about life's difficulties and how to have a better life. But so I started A Little Something, A Lot of Love about 5 years ago, right after our loss. I put together these care packages called Joy Bombs for moms, because my main objective is to support women and families going through pregnancy loss, stillbirth, miscarriage. I handcraft all the items that go inside the bags. So they're beautiful, uplifting items for the moms and the families in the hospitals. But I also wanted to start donating them to women going through earlier losses. So then I started to donate them to OB offices, to the ERs and hospitals. So we kind of cover all of the different types of losses in the community. I can be found on Instagram at A Little Something, A Lot of Love, and it's just a very uplifting page. I will usually post the donation drops. There'll be like videos of me putting the bags together, having my sons help with the whole process, driving them to the hospitals. And to date, we've donated over 1,000 joy bombs, which I'm really excited about. It's one of those things that you hate that so many people have been through miscarriage and through loss, but you're happy to be able to have supported that many people along the way. I also have a website where you can purchase bracelets, any of the buy one, donate one bracelets. I'm constantly coming out with new designs and new styles, and they just look so cute, all stacked up. They're super fun. But again, anytime you purchase one is then donated into the Joy Bombs. I also sell Joy Bombs right on my website. So if you know anybody going through loss, I can ship them nationwide. They're also just really beautiful, uplifting care packages. So for the holidays, it's a fun idea. You can kind of personalize it on my website, the scent of the candle that you want, what type of bracelet. And you can write a note that I then handwrite and put into the care packages.
I love that.
So yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces. We've got the Joy Bombs, we've got the website, we've got the support group for moms. But at the heart of it all is community and hope and joy.
It's so good. I'm curious, can moms join from all over, nationwide, or is it just in your local community as far as the support group goes?
Right now, it is just local because we meet in person.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good to know. And, I love that you can go on your website and purchase bracelets or purchase joy bombs. And even if you're not in your local community, there's ways that other people can be involved in, sharing the joy and sharing, just thinking of someone else who's maybe experienced a miscarriage or a loss in some capacity. And again, Emily, I just can't thank you enough for your incredible work, for your heart to serve and to really turn something that was really hard for you into something that's just making this incredible ripple effect. And, I'm so grateful to know you and to connect more. And we'll make sure that everything is in the show notes of this podcast. So if anyone is interested in connecting with Emily more, buying a joy bomb, learning more about her nonprofit, et cetera, make sure you go to the show notes to connect more and to learn more at any point in time. So Emily, thanks again for being here, my friend. Super grateful for you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so awesome. And I should mention too that if anyone ever wants to contribute items to the Joy Bombs, I have had people donate from kind of all over the country. So if there's an item that you would like to donate, or if you're a maker, or if you've had a miscarriage, sometimes it's a beautiful way to give back and honor that loss. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out on Instagram or email, and would love to connect with all of you guys.
I love that. The power of the ripple effect and just giving back. Giving back is such an important thing we can do for the motherhood community and beyond that. So Emily, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. For ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.